Hey guys, so this is the first actual tutorial we're going to look at on how to build an Excel salary human resource dashboard. And the thing that we're going to do here is we're going to look at how we can set up pivot tables to build and display all of our calculations and then use that in our dashboard. So my first step here is going to be actually renaming the sheet of data that we have. So in order to do that, we're just going to select the sheet. We're going to type in employees and I'm going to hit enter. Now if you hit Alt HOR, that's actually going to remove our grid lines on this spreadsheet. So if you hit Alt, you'll see that you can see all of the different options that are available to you. So if you're in different language or whatever of Excel, you can actually just follow along the guides that are provided to you. It's going to be different for every language of Excel that you're using. So now that I've done that, I've actually removed the grid lines. I love that just because it makes the spreadsheet look a lot better and just a little bit cleaner. So yeah, I'm going to also now select the cell B9, and that's going to be part of my table. So if you wanted to create a table, one of the things that you can do for creating a table is hitting Control plus T is going to actually grab your data set. It's going to take whatever is within the range of your data set, and it's going to generate that table for you if you hit Control T, and then you just select headers, and that's going to allow that to do that. So we've already got our pivot table set up in this case. So we're going to just go to the Design tab under Table Tools, and we're going to click on Summarize with Pivot Tables and create a new sheet there. Now that we've done that, we're going to drag. You'll see over on the right hand side that we have all of our pivot table fields, and what we're going to do is we're going to grab employee ID as our first one. Now the reason we're going to do that is because that's what's going to make our records unique. And in this part of the tutorial, what I want to do is show the top 3 employees based on salary. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to drag employee ID into the rows section. So there's 4 different sections in a pivot table. You got filters, you got columns, rows, and values. Filters is literally a spot where it'll allow you to drop in any of your fields, and then you can filter your entire pivot table based on that. We're not going to be using that. We're also not going to be using columns. So if you wanted to add like dates across the top, for example, and then have a row record of employee and then salary over in the values section, you could do that, and it would show, for example, it would show all the different dates essentially for a span. In this case, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to do that. So once we've dropped the employee ID there, you'll see that we have what's called row labels. This is in a compact form type of pivot table. Now, any pivot table that you create by default, I believe as of 2007 and forward, so 2007, 2010, and 2013, the pivot table is going to show up in this compact form. I do not really like pivot tables displaying in a compact form, and I'd rather have it in a tabular form, and I'll show you how you can do that very soon. And by tabular, I just mean you're going to have your fields across the top and the row records below, all in a clear table format, just like you see on the prior tab there. So if I grab first name, I'm going to put that under the row section, last name under the row section, and as I was saying, if you see over on the left hand side, you got row labels, then you have one, and then John, and then Smith, and that's all broken down underneath, and that's what's called the compact form of a pivot table. If we grab salary, we're going to drop that into the values section. So now that we have values, or now that we have the salary over there, we can actually change the format of that by going to right-clicking on the values sum of salary, going to number format, and then just typing on currency there for format cells. I can just select the negative one if I wanted to. We're not going to see any negative values here, but perfect. So now you see that all of our values for salary are going to be displayed as in a dollar value format. Now, again, I want to remove the grid lines, so I just typed Alt HOR there, and that allowed me to do that. If I type Alt and then I just follow my records there, if I go over to the report layout under the Design tab of Pivot Table Tools, and I select show in tabular form, you'll see that that has now changed my data set from that compact form that I was talking about earlier into a tabular form. So what we can do up in the top under the design tab under pivot table tools, when you have anything selected or any cell selected within your pivot table, you'll notice that the pivot table tools is available in the quick access ribbon on the top there. We're going to go to subtotals, and I don't want to show the subtotals that are showing right now. So you'll see that employee 3 has a subtotal of 142,000. It doesn't make sense to have that. So we're going to say do not show subtotals under there. We're also going to remove and place the report layout into a repeat mode. So every line is just going to repeat itself. So if you had multiple records for the top level record, for example, if it was employee or you had multiple Derek's, we would show Derek twice or in a row. So then we're going to go to grand totals. We're going to go off for rows and columns, and that's going to remove all of our grand totals. Excellent. So I was just going to show you that, and there you go. You see down at the bottom that grand totals are there right now. As soon as you hit off, those are actually going to be gone. So I'm going to select the entire data set and just do a left justify as I did from the home tab. That just makes everything line up over to the left nicely. So now what we want to do is we want to show all of our records, in descending for the summary of the salary. So from highest to lowest, we want to see all of our salaries in that order. So that's what I just did by going to more sort options. And you'll see that our salary now is from highest to lowest. And you can do that, again, just showing you if you go to employee ID, it's going to actually use your row ID when you go to sort options. Let's go back over to that descending. We're going to go to sum of salary, and that's going to rejig this to actually be in the order that we want. There's also more options there that you can use and sort on the grand totals if you'd like. So now if we go back to this and we go to sort options, if we're going to go to the top 10 filters here. So if you go down to filters, value filters, we're going to want to put 3 in here. This is going to show us the top 3 records, and we're going to show them in descending order from highest to lowest. So our top 3 employees based on salary are Brandon, Scott, John, and those are the top 3 for that. So now we have that entire data set there. If you go to pivot table tools design, you can change the look and feel of this. I also like to just add some additional black lines around this. I'm going to change the title here of that. You'll notice that if you put in a title that's the exact same name as your field name, it's not going to allow you to do that. So you got to change it to employee salary, or emp salary is fine as well. We're now going to select that whole section, go to home, and then we're going to go add all the borders. And you'll see that that makes that nice and pretty. So if we go Control C here, I'm going to add another field just to get the concatenated names, which we're going to use in our dashboard. So if I hit, you'll see that there's transpose, there's the formula, and then there's formatting for types of pasting. So we just pasted the exact same formatting. That's all I did there. And I'm going to type in here the employee full name. Okay. So you can double click, rate any of the lines in between each of the letters or row numbers, and that's going to actually expand to whatever the size is, the largest size of characters within any of the cells below. So if I type in equals concatenate, we want to get the full name of the employee right now. So if I type in equals concatenate, and then we select cell C4, comma, and then if we put in quotations and then a space and then D4, that's actually going to concatenate our cells together, and it's going to show Brandon Strong for the entire name. And then if we just double click, it's going to actually follow those formulas right down. So you'll see that it updated for C5, D5, and then C6 and D6 to make our names. So now I'm going to just copy our pivot table. Now that we've copied the pivot table, you'll see that we have the exact same copy. I'm going to go back to my first pivot table. I want to change the name of my pivot table just to make it logical. So if you go to the Analyze tab, you can rename your pivot table. And this one's going to be top 3 salary. And our next pivot table is going to be bottom 3 salary. So to make life easier, instead of creating a pivot table from scratch, I just copied it. And all I did was hit Control C and then Control V to paste it. So in this case, we're going to rename our other one pivot table as bottom 3 salary. So we're going to change the settings on this by going, you'll see that we actually want to go to ascending first for sorting. And we're going to go to employee salary. And that's going to change our sorting from lowest to highest, which is what we're going to want once we change the value filter to be bottom 3. So we're going to want to see the lowest first, and then second lowest, and then third lowest. So that's why we've changed the sort back to ascending on our sort option. So if we select our little drop down arrow under employee ID, we're going to go to value filters, go to top 10. We're just simply going to change show bottom 3, hit OK. And now we see that we have the bottom 3 employees based on salary, and they're also sorted in the order from lowest to highest, because that's exactly what we want to do. So we're just going to again go Control C under employee full name, copy the exact formatting. And then if you see there, when I Control C the employee full name, and then when I right click on the cell below in the second pivot table, and I select that 1, 2, 3 option, that's literally just going to select the exact text that's in that cell when we're copying it. Now I can also copy the formulas from above, because it's just going to match exactly the concatenate. So let's go Control C under F4 through F6, and then we're going to select that formula option. So we hit Control C, selected it, and you'll see that we went and right clicked and then select the FX paste type, and that's what displayed all of the employee full names and used that same formula. Now we're just going to change the titles on here. We just did merged and centered all of the cells above our tables, our pivot tables. Change that to bottom 3 salaried employees. We're going to put boxes around this. I can select both of those, merge cells, and then just hit the square, the borders that we have up on the home tab there. I like Agency FB as my font, and then I'm going to go to size 12. So we're going to select the entire pivot table, and then what I did there was I just double clicked in between, again, the lines between the columns, and that actually expanded the columns to the utmost amount of text within that entire column, or each of the columns that we selected. Great. So next we're going to copy the pivot table again. In this case, we'll just copy the bottom 3 pivot table. And now we're going to get a count using a pivot table, a count of as many employees as that we actually have in our company. So we're going to remove all of the row names here, and we're going to just be left with the salary. Now the reason we do that is because we don't need to see anything. We just want to see the total number of employees that we have in the company at this point in time. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the employee ID. So we're going to take employee salary out of there. We're going to drag employee ID under the value section. Now these are all numbers, so whenever you have numbers and there's no breaks inside your tabular data set that the pivot table is referring to, it's going to actually sum everything. In our case, we want count. So if there was text, for example, it would do a count, but because they're all numbers, it's just doing a sum of all of the employee IDs. In this case, it's 1326. That's not how many employees we have. We want to just do a count on the employee ID. So to do that, we're going to go back down to the value section. We can change this to employee count. We just change the title of it. Excuse me. So if I select the down arrow here and we go to value field settings, under there you'll see that we have summarize values by under this value field setting pop-up. And this is where you're going to select count. So we'll just select count. and then we'll hit OK. So we have 51 total employees in our table, in our employees table. And it'll change it again once you change it to, once you change the summary type. Okay, so now that we've pasted the employee count pivot table, we're gonna scroll down here. We're gonna remove the employee count and we're gonna put salary in there because we want to look at the average salary. So having all of these pivot tables in one spot, we're going to be able to, in one of our next tutorials, actually use all of these pivot tables and create one or two different slicers. In the or in the final dashboard that we're actually going to do, it's going to be country and department name, but we can associate slicers to multiple different pivot tables, and that's how we're going to kind of filter out and determine employee count for certain countries or departments or whatever. So we'll see a little bit more of that moving forward in our other tutorials. So now that we have the sum of salary, we're going to want to do the same thing here, and we're going to want to change the name to be the cumulative salary. I thought I said average salary earlier, but we do want to do the cumulative salary first here. So we're going to go value field settings. We're going to go change this to currency, and we're going to hit OK. We're going to leave it as sum because it is the cumulative salary of everyone. All right, now that we have that one, we're going to copy this one more time, and this final one is actually going to be the average salary. So we'll go over to design, actually to the analyze tab, I'm sorry, go to pivot table name. We'll change this one to employee count at the top. The second one is going to be called, we'll call it cumulative salary or cum salary, and then we'll call this third one AVG salary for the average salary. So we've renamed all of our pivot tables now. We're going to change the value field setting on this last pivot table to average, and that's what's going to drive us to tell us what the average salary is based on our selection. In this case, all records within our table. We're going to change the currency on both of these. I'd like to change the currency into thousands. So in order to do that, we're going to display this at a 0 there, a comma. So the comma here is actually what is going to make our number display, our custom number format display in thousands, that comma there. So if you put another comma, for example, that would turn that number into millions. So it would just essentially multiply or divide by 1,000 and then divide by whatever to make it into millions. So now that we've done that, we're going to just put a K. Anything that you put in quotations in custom number formatting is going to display as is if you put a character. So that's why the K in quotations is showing up simply as K after our number format. So we're going to hit OK there. We're going to apply the exact same thing over to the average salary as well. We're going to want to show this in thousands, just to make it a little more visually appealing on the final dashboard, because this number is going to be transferred over exactly how it is displayed there. So we'll change the name here at the top to average salary. And now that we've done that, this pretty much sums up the entire dashboard. We've got all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 5 different pivot tables here. All of them are going to be used in the final dashboard. I'm just going to drag over the calculations tab to get these in order. And now we have employees and calculations there. And yeah, so we got all 5 of our pivot tables now set up. Tomorrow, what we're going to be doing in the tutorial is we're going to look at setting up name ranges within our calculation tab to easily display our values in our final dashboard. So we've essentially set up all of the information that we need. Now we're just going to use name ranges to easily display that information in shapes and forms on our actual dashboard. So what we'll do is we'll see you tomorrow. I am going to be posting the next video tomorrow at 9 a.m. again on Wednesday. I look forward to seeing you guys again, and thanks for joining me today. We'll see you soon.